We're good. Do you know who that is? No idea. Okay, so I'm going to go back to who that is. You know who is Krishna, right? Of course. How about you? You know who is Krishna? Okay. Krishna appeared and performed pastimes primarily in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka, and then he departed. During his pastimes on earth, one of the celebrated events, there's many, one of them was the Battle of Kurukshetra. And in the Battle of Kurukshetra, just before the battle began, there was a very important section of Mahabharata where there was a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita. And the conclusion of the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita is an important verse, chapter 18, last of the chapters of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Sarvadharmam prityaja mam ekam sharanam braja. You familiar with the verse? No. Mam ekam sharanam. Mam ekam sharanam. Surrender unto me alone. Mam ekam, me alone. Sharanam. Surrender unto me alone. And the first part is sarva dharmam, all forms of dharma, because there are many forms of dharma that are presented within Vedic texts, and some of them within Bhagavad Gita itself. Prityaja, abandon. Prityaja, mamekam sharanam braja. And then the second half, aham tvam sarva papebhyo, sarva papebhyo. Krishna will release anyone who does that mamekam sharanam, surrendering to him alone. He released them from the bondage of their sinful reactions. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yishyami ma suchaha. Don't fear. No worries, as they say these days. No problema in Spanish. And in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, they say, their teaching includes that verse of Bhagavad Gita is the principal verse that governs the whole of the teachings of Sri Vaishnavism. Just surrender completely. And they have a name for it, a certain name for it. So, and that verse rules all the verses of Ramayana, because all the verses of Ramayana are teaching how to take shelter of Lord Ramachandra. There's other nice things to say, but we're going to get to who this is. Krishna departed. After Krishna departed, there was a little juncture of time before the next Yuga began. And so Dwapara Yuga ended, Kali Yuga began, with a little juncture of time in between. So Krishna, this is a description, I'm paraphrasing, a description in the biography about Lord Chaitanya. So Krishna considered, Kali Yuga has begun. How are people going to understand how to mamekam sharanam? It's a degraded age, this and that and the other difficulties in Kali Yuga. I'm going to have to give them a special explanation of how to. So I could send a representative, or I can empower someone who's there. Best if I do myself. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. There's several references. One of those references is the name-giving ceremony for Krishna. When Gargamuni was giving Krishna's name, Gargamuni said to Vasudeva, did you know that your son in previous ages had different colors? Now he's blackish. Shukla, white. Rakta, red. Tata, also pita, or yellowish, or golden. Now he's blackish. Those 4 colors indicate the 4 yugas and the principal avatar, or form of the Lord, who presents the Yuga Avatar, Yuga Dharma. White, red, yellow, black. So Krishna gave the Yuga Dharma in the principle of take full shelter of him. And during that process, anyway, without, I can say so many more things. There's another nice description found in the 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. You familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam? A little bit? A little bit. A little bit? No idea. You've heard of Bhagavad Gita, right? Okay. So, this is easy. Bhagavad Gita is undergraduate study. Srimad Bhagavatam is graduate study. In graduate study, everything that's in the undergraduate study is in the graduate study. It's just it's more detail and more application of those principles that's in the undergraduate study. So it's the graduate study. Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos. And in canto number 11, there's a discussion between some sages. They're like very special sages. They're like Narada Muni type sages. They can travel about without an aircraft. Just, Narada has a veena, and they don't even have a veena. They just zoom. It's high technology. They're perfectly realized souls. Without some further detail, they pay a visit to one king who was about to perform a yajna, and just as they were getting ready to begin the yajna, these 9 great sages appeared. And the king, Maharaj Nimi was his name, he stopped his yajna and stood up and folded his palms and prostrated himself before these 9 sages. It's a beautiful painting. They're hovering in the air, and he said, I don't know who you are, but you're obviously illuminated, enlightened souls. May I ask some questions? Prashna. And so he asks a number of questions, and one of the questions was, who are the avatars in the 4 yugas? Similar to the birth of Krishna name-giving ceremony. So when it comes to describing the Kali Yuga Avatar, who is Lord Chaitanya, there's a nice verse that says, without all the Sanskrit, he's in the category of Krishna Varna, but he's not blackish like Krishna, Trisha Krishna. And his function is with his associates, and his whole method, he gives Yagyai Sankirtana Prayayar. Yagyai, sacrifice, yagya. Sankirtan, yagya. It's the means of, in this age of Kali, how to bring the greatest opportunity for spiritual elevation for this age. Because that was the question asked by the king of these 9 sages. Who to describe the Yuga avatars for each of the 4 ages. So that's Lord Chaitanya with some scriptural authority. He's Krishna himself, but not in the complexion, or Twisha. He's not in the complexion of Krishna. Twisha Krishna. He's golden in color, or Gora, golden in color, Gora Hari. So that's one of the names by which he is known. Gora Hari. Hari, who is in a golden complexion. And he introduced what you see in the painting, the Yuga Dharma. The yajna, or the sacrifice of the chanting of the holy name. San, kirtan, like what we just did. Together, San Kirtan, chanting together the names of the personality of Godhead. So he gave that method, and generally, great personalities, they provide teachings. And he did it in a very special, unique way. The teachings he provided was primarily by instructing thoroughly principal associates, and then empowered them to understand his teachings, and empowered them to write the teachings down for future generations. However, and there's many literatures by those empowered representatives that explain the teachings of bhakti and the purpose of those teachings of bhakti, the goal, sadhana, and the goal of sadhana, and the stages of perfection of sadhana, and everything in between. Worldly duties and how to live your life in a way that's directed in a spiritual direction. Anyway, many nice teachings. Lord Chaitanya, however, he left 8 writings that at least are understood to be his writings, 8 verses. Ashtaka, 8 verses. And they're called Shikshastaka, Shiksha Astaka, 8 essential teachings that encapsulate what you see in the picture, the Yuga Dharma, the Sankirtan process. How to perform Sankirtan in such a way that consciousness becomes cleansed, elevated, purified, and reaching the final goal. And there's 8. We're going to be covering 1 of the 8. And already yesterday evening, it took about an hour and a half, we covered the first 2 of in the first verse there's 7 excellences. Excellence is just a nice English way of saying what's in the verse. They're features of the process of Sankirtan that are step by step by step by step up to the stage of pure love of God. In sequence, 7 excellences, or 7 steps. So here's the verse. Most of the devotees here are familiar with the verse. We can say it together, those of you that know the verse. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavado jivanam anandam bodhivardhanam pratipadam purnamratasvadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So the main phrase is the last one. Param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to param vijayate, the Sri Krishna Sankirtan that does these 7 things, or that has those 7 elements, step by step. So yesterday evening, we covered the first 2. You see in the first line, Cheta Darpana Marjanam, which means the marjana means cleansing, and the Cheta means consciousness or the mind or the heart, and becomes, it acts like a mirror, Cheta Darpana Marjanam. Cleanses the mirror of the mind, the mirror of the heart, or the mirror of consciousness. Cleansing. Because consciousness is covered, consciousness needs to be cleansed. So that's the first impact or effect or experience from chanting. One who takes it up seriously. And then bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. Agni, we all know. Agni means, you know what Agni means? Fire. Agni. Fire god, Agni Dev? No idea. Okay. Agni. Fire. You know, like Zippo. Fire. Agni. So, Dhava Agni is a forest fire. And Mahadavagni is a blazing forest fire. And Bhava means suffering. There's a big forest fire, not just the trees and the birds and it's a very dangerous thing. Forest fire is a dangerous thing. And the congregational chanting, Sri Krishna Sankirtanan, is like the deluge of a downpour of rain that extinguishes a forest fire, and similarly, the Sankirtan can extinguish the blazing fire of material existence, repeated birth and death. There's a power. So the first one, this is yesterday evening, consciousness becomes cleansed. The blazing fire of material existence, through gradual application of Sankirtan, the nirvapanam, this blazing fire of material existence becomes extinguished. The cycle of birth and death becomes extinguished in steps, gradual. And now we're ready for that with the first 2. That's yesterday's class in 5 minutes. Now here's number 3. We'll go back. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. Chandrika is, besides the brand of soap, you've heard of Chandrika soap? Chandrika means moonshine. Chandra is the moon god, like Agni is the fire god. Chandra is the moon god, and Chandrika is like diminutive. It's moonshine. Chandrika. And Shreya means good fortune. I just by listening to Prabhupada's lectures for so many years, I've learned a few Sanskrit words. Shreya is one of those. Prabhupada would say like this: there are 2 things, because there's more than 2 things, but there's 2 things. There's Shreyas and Preyas. Preyas means short-term benefit. Shreyas means long-term benefit. And he would give the example. For example, children like to play. Most children like to play. Do you like to play? Yeah, of course. So, short-term benefit. And then at some point, mom and dad say, time to go to school. And the child may say, I want to play. And they say, well, long-term benefit, you're going to need education. So just some part of the day, you can play the rest of the day, but you have to do the Shreya part. You have to do the long-term benefit part. Short-term benefit, long-term benefit. Preyas, Shreyas. So Another meaning of Shreyas besides long-term benefit is good fortune. And the last word, Vittaranam, is the spreading of something, expanding. Like during the daytime, lotus is open because the sun is there, lotus is open. At night, lotuses will close. But if there's very bright moonlight, then the lotus may open. The white lotus of good fortune opens, or Vittaranam, in the presence of the Krishna Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy name. So Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam, this is excellence number 3. So in life, the lotus is a symbol of different nice things. It's a symbol of peace, or tranquility, or well-being. Lotus. And in this case, he's using poetically the lotus to indicate good fortune, the white lotus of good fortune. And even it may be nighttime, like this age of Kali is night compared to daytime. We'll do this. According to the Vedic picture of time, time moves in cycles. Day and night is one cycle. Seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring. That's another cycle. That's 1 year. And then there's the ages of mankind. Satyayug, Tretayug, Dwapara, Kali Yuga. This is the nighttime. It's the dark phase of the cycle of time, and so forth and so on. There's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger cycles. Cosmic creation, maintenance for some time, and annihilation. Cycles of time. Time moves in cycles. Time moves everything. Just like we all came from somewhere, except you live here. But we came from somewhere to get here. It took a long time to get here. And then after some time, we're here, and then after some time, most of us are going to go somewhere else. So, time moves matter. This is a Vedic concept. Time moves matter. Or say it the other way. Nothing happens without time. To have something happen, you have to have time. Busy people have to manage their time well because they have lots of things to do, because time moves matter. It's one of the 5 essential topics in Bhagavad Gita. Time is one of them. The Supreme, the living entity, time, there's 3 out of 5. Karma, activity. The Supreme, the living entity, time, karma, prakriti, material nature. 5 topics. And you understand those 5 topics, you've understood Bhagavad Gita. So time, in this dark age of Kali, the white lotus of good fortune closes, but the white lotus of good fortune opens when there's a bright light, like the bright moon. The benediction moon expands the petals of the white lotus. So at night when the lotus closes, the good fortune that is otherwise represented by a lotus will open. The white lotus of good fortune will open through the chanting of the holy name. That's excellence number 3. So how is it? Whoops. What happened? How is it the moon, not the lotus, becomes the source of benediction? The moon, the shine, the chanting of the holy name. So here's the verse that we were covering. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. The translation in English: this Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It's the chanting that awakens Shreyas, or awakens pure devotion to Krishna, and then the white lotus of good fortune expands. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. The pure devotion to Krishna awakens and expands and expands and expands. In the beginning stage, it's just the awakening of the tendency to be in service to the Supreme. Because in darkness, we don't serve the Supreme, we serve something else. We serve money, or we serve something. We serve something. Everyone, because by constitution, the soul is a servant of the Supreme. But when we're closed and we forget the Supreme, we serve something else. Something else, so many something else's. Anything but the Supreme. So the chanting of the holy name has the effect of awakening, cleansing, starting the first one, extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence, the cycle of birth and death, tendency, that movement of time, and then the tendency to serve the Supreme becomes awakened. The white lotus of good fortune. It's the holy name that does that. To serve with love. And then further, gets further fortune, further fortune, further fortune. Ultimately, to be connected to our eternal relation with the Supreme. But it's, for starters, it's just reviving the dormant tendency to serve the Supreme. That's the effect, even if one doesn't know what chanting is all about. Lots of people don't know what it's all about. It's okay. The sound has an impact. And there may be, one of the impacts may be, what is this? Even for outsiders or people that don't, people that grew up in a different culture, they don't know anything about mantra and Krishna, and they know music. But mantra meditation, it has an effect. Cleansing and awakening of their dormant tendency to serve, and more mature stages coming to the position of full consciousness. This is a verse from Canto 10, Chapter 14, spoken by Lord Brahma. That fellow with the four heads there, that's Lord Brahma. And the one he's speaking to is Krishna. So he's offering prayers, and from the series of verses where he's offering prayers, Shreya Shrutim Bhaktim. So he's saying to Krishna, devotional service unto you is the best path for self-realization. Shreya Shrutim Bhaktim. Bhakti is devotional service. And it's the Shreya Shrutim. It's the utmost benefit, the best benediction for the living entity. A very similar idea is mentioned in Katha Upanishad. You've heard of the Upanishads? I'm not just asking this young man, because I'm not picking on you, I just want to connect. So, the Vedas are vast. And there's 4 Vedas. There's actually 1 Veda, but Vyas divided them to make it easy for this age into 4 parts. And largely they're mantras that teach how to perform yagyas that can help people fulfill their desires. And then there's a philosophical portion. The philosophical portion is the Upanishads. And the little terse sayings that not easy to understand, but by training one can understand the meanings of the Upanishads. So there are principal Upanishads. One of those principal Upanishads is pictured here in the lower left, Katha Upanishad. Katha means speaking, conversation, teaching through speaking. Katha Upanishad. And the two personalities who are in this Katha Upanishad are pictured in this painting. On the left side, that's Yamaraj. How do we know it's Yamaraj? He's got this scepter that has a skull on the top. Yamaraj is the Lord of Death. So you've learned three things now at least. Agni, fire god. Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. So Yamaraj is having a discussion with a young boy, and his name is Nachiketa. So this a little section. This is a verse from Katha Upanishad, where there you see in yellow letters at the top these two terms, Shreyas and Preyas. Because we've already spoken about Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas means long-term, Preyas means short-term. And Manusham etas, Manusha means mankind, for people in general. There's long-term and short-term. And so Yamaraj, depicted in this painting, he has a bowl carrier. So Yamaraj says to this young boy, the wise reject the preyas and choose instead the shreyas, that which is permanently beneficial. Permanently beneficial. The foolish choose the preyas with its resultant conceptions of gain and the acquisition of fleeting pleasures. You know, that's like preyas, wanting to play. There's something that inspires people to want to play. That's preyas. Short-term gain and some senses, experience a sense object, and it says, woo, woo, woo. That was nice. Let's do some more of that. Play. So, wise, this is a discussion in Katha Upanishad between Yamaraj and Nachiketa, choose the Shreyas. So that's excellence number 3 of the chanting of the holy name. The white lotus of good fortune, Shreyas, the white lotus of good fortune, expands, Vistaranam, through the chanting of the holy name. It's the dark age of Kali, and the good fortune, the lotus opens in the light of this radiant moon, Benedictine moon, and good fortune spreads in an age of darkness. That's excellence number 3. Now here's number 4. Vidya vadhu jivanam. Vidya means knowledge. Vidya. Ignorance is the absence of knowledge. Avidya. We talked about this yesterday evening. I'm going to do a little, just to keep the younger persons here tuned in. Do you know, you should know, Buddha is the head of Buddhism, and Buddha rejected the Vedas. The Veda means knowledge. Same word as vidya, knowledge or education. He rejected them and said, follow me, because he wanted people to be nonviolent, and there's a portion in the Vedas where there's sacrifice of animals. He said, forget the Vedas. Forget the Vedas. Just follow me. Be nonviolent. Ahimsa. Don't kill animals. Don't kill others. Be nonviolent. And then, in addition to being nonviolent and other qualities of goodness, which he taught, which is nice, he taught some nice qualities. He taught that The problem of material life is people suffer. So I'm going to say it slowly. The root cause, if you're a follower of Buddhism, you'll know the answer to this question. The root cause of suffering, desire. Root cause of suffering, desire. You want to become free from suffering? Become free from desire. How do you become free from desire? It has a twofold system. Live a life of goodness, starting with nonviolence, ahimsa, and cleanliness and truthfulness and charity and compassion and all good things. Live your life that way. And then the second is to live in the moment. Mindfulness is the message that's used in modern times. Mindfulness. You've heard that one? Mindfulness? Yeah. So mindfulness is, in principle, the teaching is the only thing that exists, the only consciousness that exists is the moment. Because the past is gone, the future hasn't happened. Consciousness, there's a Sanskrit phrase. His teachings are in Sanskrit. Kshanik Vijnanavad. Kshanik means blink of an eye, less than a moment. So consciousness is that kshanik vijnana, the momentary consciousness. So be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, live your life in goodness, and be in mindfulness every moment, every moment, every moment. And when you become perfect, perfection is go beyond the moment. What's on the other side of the moment? Nirvana or enlightenment. The objective of a practicing Buddhist is enlightenment, or nirvana in Sanskrit. And nirvana means, nir means not. Vana means forest, beyond the forest of material existence, or cessation of material existence. Nirvana, literally, cessation of material existence. So, according to the Vedic conception, which Buddha rejected, the root cause of suffering is not desire, because desire is of the soul, because souls are part of the Supreme. And within the Supreme, there's desire, like love of the Supreme. So that's a desire. So we also have desire. We also have the desire to love and be loved. It's just intrinsic to the soul. So we are. So the problem is not desire. The problem is ignorance. Vidya. And if you want to stop suffering, stop ignorance, because ignorance leads to ignorant desire, leads to ignorant activity, leads to suffering. The antidote for suffering is knowledge, or vidya. So the verse, this Shikshastika Excellence number 4, is the chanting of the holy name serves to awaken vidya. It's a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The graduate study of Bhagavad Gita is Srimad Bhagavatam. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a nice verse, there's many nice verses that say that the process of bhakti brings or awakens, gives rise to knowledge and detachment. Here's the verse. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. So jnana, or knowledge, or vidya is the process of receiving knowledge, education. And this practice, this principle, Excellence 4, says the practice of chanting the holy name is the life of the wife of education. So I don't know how to cover this for our newer people. I'm going to skip this. This is what you see on the screen here. These are stages in unfolding of bhakti. But that's a whole other, maybe I'll just do it. How does bhakti begin? Really simple. One who has bhakti can give it to somebody who doesn't have it. Someone's carrying bhakti in their heart, and they find somebody that doesn't have yet, or has become asleep, it hasn't become awakened, so they give bhakti. From their bhakti vessel in their heart, they spill a little bhakti on some others. Whoops. And they say, oh, thank you. So that's sadhu sangha. For the receiver that has a little faith, they receive sadhu's association, and something happens. Sadhu sangha results in you do with sadhus what sadhus do. That's what happens. It's bhajana kriya. Those are the first three stages of bhakti. Faith, sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya. And when you engage in bhajana kriya, activities of devotion, then comes this stage. Anartana vritti. So what we have discussed in the first three verses so far, we're on excellence number 4, but the first 3 is the anartana vritti stage. We didn't tell you, but now we're telling you. The cleansing of reactions of previous activities, cetadarpana marjanam, and then bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam, the cycle of birth and death, repeated birth and death, and struggling in that circumstance becomes mitigated. And then finally, vidya vadhu jivanam. Then shreya kairva chandrika, the awakened state of happiness within the heart becomes manifest and expanded through the chanting of the holy name. And then comes, this verse is starting the 4th excellence, that's this one, refers to chanting enriched with knowledge of the science of devotional service. So we study Bhagavad Gita, along with chanting and worshipping and praying and doing other nice things. We hear the message of Bhagavad Gita and hear the message of Bhagavad Gita explained by sadhus. And that helps us achieve this 4th excellence. Knowledge of the science of devotional service, enriching our chanting. And then gradually, not all at once, both the mind and the intelligence, having become purified this way, become fixed. And we become steady. That's what this word nishtha is, steady. So that's the 4th excellence, and then comes what comes after that. Ruchi and asakti, etc., etc. Further stages of bhakti. This is a painting of Narada Muni having a discussion with a king, King Prachini Bari. And Narada is answering questions the king is asking, and the essence of the conversation is the stage of spiritual elevation, performance of worldly duties in a way that's accordance with theistic conduct, so that you become not sullied, but you become cleansed by performance of worldly duties, but in such a way that tan matir yaya, where tan, that's the supreme person, the supreme objective of life, becomes fixed in one's mind. Sa vidya tan matir yaya. Our education should be such that we can become elevated to Krishna consciousness. The messages that we hear, along with what you learn in school, the academic things and career-oriented, those things. The essence should be, this is Narada's instruction to the king, that elevation to Krishna consciousness becomes possible. Devotion. This is a lady who previously was a prostitute sent by an envious Muslim ruler who wanted to corrupt, through the agency of this prostitute, wanted to corrupt Haridas Thakur. Instead, she became elevated to chanting the holy name like Haridas Thakur was doing there. She's shown with a shaved head, sitting before a tulsi plant with beads and chanting the holy name. So that's the history behind the painting. Devotional service focused exclusively on increasing our attachment to Krishna is the goal of education. Now, there's worldly education, and there's no problem with worldly education, provided it doesn't obliterate or obscure completely the higher purpose of education. Attaining the goal of Krishna is that higher purpose, and it keeps us moving forward. In the verse, the word vadhu is there. Vadhu means a young bride, a wife, or young bride. So she's the vadhu jivanam, the young bride of transcendental knowledge. There's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, back to Srimad Bhagavatam again. We like Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a verse spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, and Shukadeva Goswami in the whole of the Bhagavatam is having he came to a place where Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die. Who's Maharaj Parikshit? Maharaj Parikshit was the surviving descendant of the Pandavas. Arjuna, Bhima, Yudhishthira, the 5 Pandava brothers. Parikshit was the sole descendant in that line of the royal family. And circumstance happened, without the detail, he was cursed to die by the bite of a snake bird, a mystical entity. He just accepted it's going to happen. He turned his kingdom over to his his oldest son, and took off his royal garments and sat by the side of the Ganges, was prepared to fast for the remaining 7 days of his life, and requested the sages and learned persons in his whole kingdom to come and be with him and to give him instruction. What is he to do now that he knows? We don't know. Who knows? Going back to where we came from, we may not make it. Who knows? We don't know. But he knew 7 days finished. So he is preparing himself for fixing his consciousness in however he was supposed to fix his consciousness. Shukadeva Goswami came along, and immediately the king, Maharaj Parikshit, raised questions to Shukadeva Goswami, and one of those questions is as follows. All different varieties of Atma Ramas, Atma Rama, those who take pleasure in the Atma Rama, the perfected souls. All different varieties of Atma Ramas, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including the liberated souls. It's an important verse. Supposing one's not liberated, most of us are not liberated, then we're attracted to so many things. But even those that are attracted to so many things can become attracted to the Supreme. And even those who are already liberated, they're attracted to the Supreme. and the topics of the Supreme. So it's good for everybody. This is a celebrated verse. There's lots and lots and lots of commentary on it, called the Atmarama verse. Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami is repeating what he heard from Shukadev Goswami, because when Shukadev Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to the king, he was in the audience. Sutta was in the audience. And later, after everything happened, there are many, many sages, they asked Sutta, could you repeat? And we didn't hear everything. Could you repeat what you heard and express it in your own words? And so he did. This is one of his expressions. The Atmarama verse was explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. That's this painting. Sanatana Goswami was the prime minister in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah, that was like 1/3 of India today, the territory that he ruled. And he was his prime minister. He gave it up, became very devoted to Lord Chaitanya, and he's asking Lord Chaitanya to explain the Atmarama verse to him. Lord Chaitanya's explanation. With the exception of devotional service, all methods of self-realization are like the nipples on the neck of a goat. There's a goat. Goats sometimes have these little things hanging from their throat, from their neck. So the nipples hanging from the neck of a goat don't give milk. Similarly, the other process of self-realization don't give really self-realization. Therefore, an intelligent person adopts only devotional service, giving up all other processes of self-realization. Now, the message of this fourth excellence is the chanting of the holy name bestows that. Knowledge and detachment arise spontaneously from devotional service, and devotional service is awakened through the chanting. It just happens. Or say it this way, it's our nature to be engaged in service to the Supreme, but it's our nature of service is misplaced. I've mentioned already. We serve so many other things. The biblical saying is serving mammon, serving, materialism in conventional language. So we serve something, so many somethings we serve, because it's our nature. And because that misplaced tendency to serve covers the original tendency to serve the Supreme, self-realization is to awaken the natural propensity for serving the Supreme. Because devotional service is that way to awaken that natural propensity. Now, I included some other slides, which I'm just going to skip. The other slides are just images from the New York Times article that's showing people see yoga and meditation as a means to become serene, but without necessarily finding shelter in the Supreme and rendering service to the Supreme. So it's incomplete. That's what those slides are saying. Here's Srila Prabhupada in a lecture in Bombay, 1974, where he's indicating that this process of chanting, in course of time, it is likely going to lead to study of Bhagavad Gita, to have deeper understanding of the teachings of devotional service. And then further, the ecstatic effort in chanting, as you saw in the opening slide, Lord Chaitanya dancing, and the effect of chanting leads to ecstasy, vidya badhu jivanam. By rendering, this is Sutta Goswami pictured on the left. He is speaking to an assembly of sages in a forest, the forest of Naimisharanya. And in the forest of Naimisharanya, that's where the sages met, the fellow with the big beard in the front, That's Shaunaka Rishi. He's the one mainly asking questions. Sutta is the main one giving answers. They want to hear, what did Shukadeva Goswami say in Srimad Bhagavatam narration? So here's that verse, the English translation. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge, underlined, and detachment. Vidya vadhu jivanam. So, detachment and causeless knowledge arise from the rendering of devotional service, which is awakened or inspired by chanting of the holy name. So here's the English translation of that phrase, Vidya vadhu jivanam. It is the life, or jivanam, of the young bride, vadhu, of all transcendental knowledge. That's the meaning. The painting on the right, that's two great, 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 great personalities, followers of Lord Chaitanya, that wrote the books that I mentioned at the very beginning. He gave the teachings. They received the teachings, were empowered to understand the teachings, were empowered to write the teachings properly, and they're the ones that are pictured in the painting. So they received knowledge from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A result of acquiring devotion is that devotees become illuminated with spiritual knowledge. That's the message. Further chanting matures that knowledge into realization, which in time reveals the devotee's original position in one of the 5 relationships with Krishna. Now, because of the audience here and time and things, I'm not sure I'm going to try to go further. Just for example, there's 5 relationships with Krishna. In the temple, in the Houston temple this morning, we read about this topic in the 3rd verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 113. And mention is there of 5 relationships, or primary relationships with the personality of Godhead. Those 5 primary relationships are awe and veneration towards the Supreme. That's one. Then next, wanting to render some service, inspired by the worshipableness of the Supreme. So servitude, second primary relationship. The third is friendship, just like Arjuna. You know who is Arjuna? You know who's Arjuna? You do? Tell me what you know about Arjuna. Yeah, very good. And yeah, very dear friend. So that's this third rasa, or relationship. Sakya, or friendship. You're a very dear friend of Krishna. So that's the third primary relationship. We'll do the first 2 again. On veneration, God is great, almighty, all-powerful, etc. As a regard, it's not yet rendering service, but recognizing the greatness of God. It's a relationship. Then, doing some service. He's so great, let me do some service for him. Then the third is friendship. It's like Arjuna. He serves, Arjuna served Krishna, but with a kind of intimacy of one friend and another friend. Then the fourth is parental, like, for example, Mother Jasoda and Nanda Maharaj. They had a relationship with Krishna. They did lots and lots and lots of service, just like parents do with their children. They do lots and lots of service. And the object of love is Krishna, then it's parental affection in relationship with Krishna. Putana. You've heard of Putana? Yeah? Wow. Congratulations. Yeah. Putana. Putana was a witch, in a classic sense of witch. K, chari. K means air or sky. And witches travel in the sky on a broomstick. You've seen, little drawings of Halloween, lady with a big broken nose and a big funny hat and riding on a broomstick and cackling, and she's a witch. Putana was a witch. It had mystic powers. Da 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 da. Putana was sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna. The first demon that was sent by Kamsa. Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna. So he sent Putana to do his dirty work. Murderous. So many things happened. Krishna liberated, she didn't kill Krishna, Krishna liberated her. And because she came with a particular disguise, she had the ability to change shapes. Instead of looking like a weird lady riding on a broomstick, she was able to make herself look really beautiful, like a heavenly goddess. And she came with the intention of killing Krishna. So Krishna killed her. It's the detail. And when Krishna killed her, he gave her liberation because she came in the mood, at least acting as if she was going to be a mother to feed the little baby Krishna. So Krishna, when he liberated her, the body was finished, but the soul went to the spiritual world and became an eternal associate of Mother Jasoda. Far out. Far out. So the parental affection is not just Mother Jasoda or Devaki, who in the prison house of Kamsa became the mother of Krishna in Kamsa's prison. Putana became an assistant of Mother Jasoda in the spiritual world in the same mood, parental affection. So now we're on relationship number 5, the 5 relationships, and that is conjugal relationship. Like Krishna had queens in Dwarka, many queens. And in Vrindavan, he was young, he wasn't married, but he had relationships with the young gopis, and they had this conjugal affection towards Krishna. So there's 5 primary relationships. What's being said here is the chanting of the holy name. I'll read this little section again. By becoming illuminated with spiritual knowledge, which comes naturally when one engages in devotional service, knowledge awakens from within the heart. We read the verse. As that knowledge matures, then our original position, our spiritual identity in one of those 5 primary relationships becomes awakened just from chanting, which is a very elevated thing. Very elevated. So we didn't get very far. We did a review of the first 2. The heart becomes cleansed. The fire of material existence, Agni, Maha Davagni, the blazing fire of material existence becomes extinguished, just like the downpour of rain can extinguish a blazing forest fire. Bucket brigade and fire engines can't put out a forest fire. The downpour of rain. So that the mercy that comes from chanting has that effect. The cycle of birth and death can be broken The blazing fire of material existence can be broken by chanting. And then the white lotus of good fortune will expand. That is, the understanding of who we really are starts to awaken. The tendency to want to serve the Supreme starts to awaken. And then that can mature. And then further, this is knowledge. Knowledge and detachment arise. And that's pretty good. But there's 3 more, which is going to be tomorrow night. I had another plan, but what to do because of time. So let's see if there's some discussion. Kirti, you have a microphone by your left shoulder.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for the nice class. I have 2 questions. Is there any symbolism for the mirror and white lotus and Vadhu?
It's poetry. Yes. Imagery, poetic imagery, has a purpose. It's not exactly the mirror or the white lotus or the wife or the bride, but it's imagery. So the mind is like a mirror. And you look in the mirror, you can see the reflection of something. But if the mirror is dirty or dusty or covered, you can't see the reflection properly. So consciousness is not just a mirror, but it can be likened to a mirror where there's something outside and there's an impression of that something outside within the mind or within consciousness. It's a metaphor. Yes, there's a symbolism, significance. And it's the same with each of the others. The good, we discussed it. The lotus has symbolism. It means peace, or harmony, or tranquility, or in this case, it's taken as being good fortune. And good fortune at the night time of Kali Yuga diminishes because it's Kali Yuga. People are less fortunate. But the chanting of the holy name acts in such a way that just as the lotus opens when the sun rises in the morning, when the chanting of the holy name takes place, the white lotus of good fortune expands. The petals of the lotus would normally be closed, but they expand. It's a metaphor.
Thank you, Maharaj. This was very helpful. Would you entertain a second question?
Sure. I could do the other one, but we heard the other one just now. The Vadhu, the bride, young bride.
I could follow how we went from 4th excellence to the Atma Rama verse. Could you help me bridge the connection?
Sure. You want to know why the Atma Rama verse is even mentioned? How does it fit in? That's your question? There are qualities of Krishna that are attractive even to materialists. What to speak of, they're attractive to those who are already liberated. The Atma Rama persons are also attracted to the qualities of Krishna, the name of Krishna, the form of Krishna, to Krishna. Which means Krishna and his name and qualities and form and pastimes are on the liberated platform And similarly, the name is on the liberated platform. We meet, our consciousness is not. But as we progress, then it awakens that higher consciousness. And that's similar to this statement here, where Lord Chaitanya is explaining. The process of chanting is the process of awakening. Other processes don't do the same. That's the connection.
Guru Maharaj, you mentioned that there are 5 kinds of relationship with Krishna.
Yeah.
And we fall into one of those 5 categories.
Which one?
We fall into one of those 5 categories, right?
On the spiritual platform, yes.
But is that also eternal or fixed?
Yes.
Or can it be like...
Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada this question. You familiar with his asking Prabhupada this question? I'm looking at Shyam Sundar. And Prabhupada's answer was, devotional service is not static, it's dynamic. So yes, but, or yes, and. If there is a particular inclination, then the reciprocation with Krishna may be there.
On a material platform, let's say we have Vatsalya rasa, it cannot be conjugal rasa.
That's right. It's a different rasa, but that wasn't your question.
No, but a person who was on a spiritual platform, like for example, Mother Yashoda, he can never be in the word of Krishna.
But that's different. Mother Jasoda is eternally Mother Jasoda.
For example, like people who are on the conditioned platform going up, they are eternally liberated for such. But for people like
It's the same question asked in a different language, and it's the same answer. The general concept is fixed. Can that which is fixed be dynamic? Yes. No, Tamal Krishna Maharaj didn't ask, and therefore Prabhupada didn't answer. Could you elaborate, and could you give an example of one who has an eternal rasa like this may develop an eternal a rasa like that? Could you give an example? Prabhupada, he didn't ask the question, Prabhupada didn't give the example. So I can't either. But generally speaking, each one of us has an eternal relationship with Krishna, and it's fixed. And we're meant to awaken, rediscover that which is forgotten, that eternal relationship with Krishna, whatever that may be.
And in Vaikuntha, only Dasa Rasa is formed.
Say it again. In Vaikuntha,
Only Dasa Rasa is there.
well, yes and no. How's that for an answer? There's a tinge of friendship, not equal, but friendship.
But predominantly Dasa.
Yes, yes.
Only in Goloka Vrindavan, then other rasas are fully eternal.
There we go. Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. As a continuation to that same topic, because even I always ponder when I'm chanting, what is my relationship? It is such a difficult thing to realize. So I think if in your experience, have you seen a conversation or a highly devoted devotee or Srila Prabhupada himself realizing and revealing this, what the relationship with Krishna is?
It is part of the yes, the answer is yes. It is part of the process that described in different ways in different places, but the spiritual master may reveal to a disciple their eternal relationship with Krishna. with name and form and associates and so forth. It's also described that the process of devotional service itself, which means Bhakti Devi herself, may reveal through the medium of devotional service itself, that may be revealed. And it does happen, where persons who are very elevated, they come to know their eternal spiritual identity, their spiritual name, their spiritual activity, their service in the spiritual world. Although they're in this physical body, their consciousness may reach that state, and then revelation may come to them in different ways, but primarily through the medium of devotional service. There can be the instrument, that's the spiritual master, or devotional service itself, etc. So your question is it possible? And the answer is yes. Even within the physical body, because the physical body can become fully spiritualized. It no longer acts like a physical body. I mean, it gets old and dies, but it can act spiritually, just by touch. When it can spiritualize. So, the spiritual identity, spiritual form, can be known during our lifespan. That's encouraged to come to that stage. It's the stage of perfection, but there's descriptions like that. Did that answer your question? Not exactly. You still got something.
Yeah, like on the continuation is, have anybody revealed or realized and revealed this out?
Oh yeah.
But this is my connection.
Generally speaking, they don't, because it's confidential, and so they don't.
Hare Krishna, got it.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question was, since Lord Chaitanya was actually an incarnation of Lord Krishna,
Yes.
Did he have a relationship, like one of those 5 relationships, did he have a relationship towards him, or
Yes.
if so, which
well,
one?
he's Krishna himself, and he had the mood of Radharani.
Oh, yeah.
So he's Krishna himself. Here's the backstory. Krishna was considering, how much love does Radharani have for me? 3 questions. What are the feelings that she has in her relationship of love for me? What's the extent of the happiness that Radharani feels in her loving relationship with me? The explanation of Chaitanya Charitamrita says, I am the Supreme. There's nothing outside of me that remains unknown, but this remains unknown. And the reason is, the subject and the object of love, the subject needs to know the qualities in that object, the love, the heart feeling in that relationship of love. I need to take the position of the subject, Radha, so I can feel the feelings of love that Radha feels for Krishna, for me. So that was his relationship. The mood of Radha, the complexion of Radha, the ecstasy of Radha, but Krishna himself. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did. Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Excellent class. I was trying to draw a parallel between that, as Prabhu was talking, the rasas, like awe and reverence you were sharing.
And the what?
Awe and reverence, and then there is service, and then you have different levels of rasas. Friendship, dasya.
Okay.
So the parallel is anartha nivriti. So only after the anartha nivriti happens, one can get that intimacy, intimate relationship. Only after the Anartha Nivritti. One goes into Nistha and Ruchi. That's where that some level of intimate relationship with the Lord and devotees happen.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking at the earlier stages before prema, can one get an inkling of what that eternal relationship is? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, intimacy, not just externally.
Not exactly. I mean, the mood of service is awakened, and the mood of service may, in the practice of sadhana bhakti, may become attracted in vaidhi sadhana bhakti. So while rendering vaidhi regulation, devotional service under regulation, one may find that there's a particular attraction subjectively to, let's say, to one of the 6 Goswamis. It's not exactly, each of the 6 Goswamis, they're in Madhurya Rasa. But there's a mood amongst the Madhurya Rasas, Rasikas. So, Raga Nuga Sadhana Bhakti. There's Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Vaidhi means rules. You follow rules according to the teachings of Scripture. That's Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. You don't eat this and you eat that, and there's certain do's and don'ts. And you follow the do's and the don'ts to regulate your tendency to serve. And you stay there. You don't wiggle. You stay there. In course of time, that Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti doesn't exactly evolve to the next stage, but through association of those who have spontaneous devotion, one may become attracted to that spontaneous devotion. It's association. And through that association, I may develop some affinity for serving in a particular way. The rules, the vidhis, the rules and regulations, don't get trashed. They're still at the center of one's life. And added to that, some attraction through the association of perfected souls may awaken a desire towards the raga sadhana bhakti. Raga nuga sadhana bhakti. You going to be here for Thanksgiving weekend? Okay. During the Thanksgiving weekend, just this morning, I spent time on chapter 2 of Madhurya Kandamani. It's in chapter 2 of Madhurya Kandamani. See you at Thanksgiving time. But so there's the book has the details. But I'm just giving a gloss rather than the details at this time, because there's practice is of 2 kinds. It's a nice metaphor. When you're growing, you ever growing from seeds? You grow a plant. You've done that. So the little thing comes out of the ground, and then 2 leaves go either direction. So using that metaphor, symbolism. There's the upper surface and the lower surface of those 2 leaves. The upper surface is like the stage of practice under rules, and then the lower surface, a little rough, it's the spontaneous. And there's 2 leaves. And then when the little seed starts to sprout. So the beginning of devotional service has these 2 types of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana that's governed by rules, sadhana that's spontaneous. And spontaneous doesn't mean you trash the rules. It just means there's something else moving inside. A certain kind of intimacy of relationship with the object, Krishna. And I'm feeling that affinity for a relationship of the object, Krishna. And that Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti that's discussed in detail in Rupa Goswami's writings. And I think I have to, so, and how does that raga stage begin? That's when raga begins, it can begin even in the practice stage. When they using these other examples, the stages of awakening of bhakti. But it can start at an earlier stage. It depends on the association that one has and the affinity for a spontaneous type of love, an intimate kind of love. The outside doesn't change. Regular devotional service doesn't change. But the inside may become a little more in the spontaneous side. Thank you for that question, because I want to go back to chapter 2 and add it to the presentation, specifically drawing from Rupa Goswami's writings, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. How does Raga Bhakti begin? What does he write about it? But it's when Raga Bhakti begins, and it can be the earlier stages, not the fully mature stage. Anything else?
Are the two leaves?
What?
Are the two leaves that you were talking about from the seed?
I'm listening.
Are they knowledge and detachment?
No. The two leaves are the manifestation of the creeper. It's not knowledge and detachment. It's just manifestation of bhakti. That's how it starts. What's sadhana? Sadhana means practice. You see the harmonium here? If we got you a harmonium, what would you do? You go to a harmonium teacher, and they'll teach you some lessons, and they'll say, you got to practice. That's what sadhana is. And when you start practicing harmonium, it's going to be a little klutzy. It's not going to be so refined. But if you have a good teacher and you practice, two things, good teacher and you practice, then it can become, nice. And then more than nice, like fantastic. So practice. Practice makes perfect, that's what they say. Sadhana is practice. Specifically, it means practice of bhakti. Practices that help awaken love on the spiritual platform. Okay, that's it? Srila Prabhupada